Turkish involvement in Libya deepens as Ankara moves to support the internationally recognized government militarily. But will that intensify the conflict or hasten its end? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Sami Zeidan. Turkey is considering all kinds of military backing for Libya. That includes ground, marine and air support if necessary. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also said he's ready to deploy troops if the internationally recognized government of Libya formally requests help. The Government of National Accord, or GNA, has been fighting an offensive by rebel forces to unseat Prime Minister Fayez Serraj since April. Warlord Khalifa Haftar announced his final push to seize the capital earlier this month. His forces extended to Wednesday, a deadline for pro-government forces to withdraw. Erdogan's announcement came after Haftar's forces seized a grenadier-flagged ship with Turkish crew off the Libyan coast. The vessel and crew have now been released, though. Haftar's forces have threatened to retaliate.
I take this opportunity to give a warning to aerospace companies working to transfer military equipment using civilian airplanes, abusing its civilian uses, and thinking that it is under the protection of rules of international law. We have confirmed and monitored the movement of registered Boeing flights from Istanbul to Libya. The Libyan National Army Forces gives a clear and honest warning to all aerospace companies. Our air forces will not hesitate to down or strike any civilian airplanes transporting military equipment to Libya's airports.
Well, Turkey and the GNA signed security agreements last month. Under those deals, Ankara agreed to give training and equipment to the Libyan military and supply a quick reaction force if Tripoli asks for it. A separate agreement on maritime boundaries was also signed, and that's angered Greece and raised concerns among several Mediterranean countries. Tensions had already been running high between Athens and Ankara over drilling for natural gas off the coast of the divided island of Cyprus. Greece says the accord violates international law. Turkey rejects that accusation, saying it's protecting its rights in the eastern Mediterranean. Now, Libya's warring sides are backed by different countries which provide them with military supplies despite a UN arms embargo. The United Nations recognized government led by Prime Minister Fayez Serraj is backed by most Western nations, as well as Qatar and Turkey. The Government of National Accord, or GNA, as we've mentioned, is based in the capital, Tripoli, that's in the west. Now, in the east of Libya, the parliament based in Tobruk is Khalifa Haftar's center of power. He's supported by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and France. He gets military equipment from different sides. Russian private security forces from the Wagner Group have allegedly been fighting alongside Haftar's forces. Well, let's bring our guests into the show. We have Sami El-Atrash, a political activist and international lawyer. He joins us from Tripoli. Yusuf Alabarda is an international security and politics specialist and a retired Turkish Armed Forces colonel. He joins us from Ankara. And Naufal Aboud is executive director at the Nordic Center for Conflict Transformation. He joins us from Paris. Welcome to you all. If I could start with Yusuf, how far do you think Ankara is willing to go, Yusuf, in assisting the UN-recognized government in Tripoli?
As far as the Tripoli government wants and requests assistance from the Turkey,
including even ground troops, do you think?
No, because for sending the ground troops, it requires another resolution which should pass from the Turkish parliament. What the Turkish parliament so far has ratified as an agreement, only technical assistance to the Tripoli government. But if it requires, if the circumstances inside Libya gets very complicated because there are too many interventions inside Libya, including France, Russia, Turkey, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, If the things goes very complicated, probably Turkey may bring the issue to the parliament for sending troops.
So it's possible, interesting, says our guest from Ankara, to see perhaps Turkish troops in Libya. Let's bring in Nawfal if we can. Will an intensified Turkish role help bring a close to this conflict, or is it going to inflame it more, do you think, Nawfal?
Yeah, first of all, we have to say that somehow Erdogan's action and reaction towards supporting the GNA actually is mirroring the way Putin is supporting Haftar troops. We have to, say basically that while Russia is supporting the Haftar troops through Wagner's company, which is very much now present in many countries, not only in Libya, but also in Central African Republic. It was in Syria, and there is even talks, and they come to mind that it is now considering to be present in Mali if they are not already. The difference between the support of Turkey to the GNA and the support of Russia and others to the Haftars is that Russia stays invisible within this support, while Turkey chose to be visible and to support the internationally recognized government of the GNA. So that's basically the two differences. There are states.
Okay, but my question is, do you think, how is it going to impact the conflict already going on in Libya now?
Yeah, it's very much important, the intervention and the support of Turkey, because it will most likely change the balance of power in the conflict. First of all, if the front lines are stalemates, the air, it is not. Knowing that the Haftar groups have a little bit more advantage on the air side, with the drones that are, like the UN reports have confirmed that actually there are Chinese-made drones that were supplemented by other countries. So, but it will be shifting a little bit the balance in the conflict for now.
All right, shifting the balance. Sami, do you think we could see Turkish forces, Turkish advisors, whatever level of support does emerge from Turkey, entering into a clash with other foreign powers in Libya?
Yes. First of all, good afternoon to you and to your guests. And I wish you all the best in this conversation we are taking just now. I think it is about time, really, that especially in the absence of the international role, really, according to the international rules, their absence and their disability, really, to condemn the invasion of the military to the concepts of democracy in Libya. I think it is about time that the powers or the other states which believe in those values to assist the Libyan nation in protecting their inspiration and their values and freedoms, which they fought for a long time, ended up in 2011. So we are very happy to see that there is still in the world some states which are prepared really to honor their
right. That is a sentiment that many, of course, supporters of the internationally recognized and UN-backed government would express. Further in the east, you have Khalifa Haftar's forces with a very different take on the situation in Libya. And I'm just wondering whether you think we're going to see Turkey enter into more of a direct clash and confrontation, not only with Khalifa Haftar now, but with perhaps some of his backers.
Yes, we expect that, yes. Yes, we do expect that, Yani. And we feel that without serious intervention to balance the struggle, really, the unfair struggle seen by the international community, and I mean the United Nations and the Security Council and other states, which they are supposed to be really taking a proper stand and black and white, clear violation which is taking place since 2012 actually, and 13, 14, 15, and so on till the 4/4/2019, where it became very blind that it is really a serious invasion, a serious attack on democratic values, which all the world have shared, and the political agreement signed on 17/12/2015 have really clearly expressed. So in the absence of all this, we feel that the Turkish should enter really after this agreement in a serious way, and it can really develop to more physical presence in the Libyan capital and on the suburbs of Turkey.
All right. Let me go back to Nawfal briefly before I go back to Yusuf and touch on a point which you raised and ask the question of how precarious is the government's hold on Tripoli right now? We've seen a stalemate for a very long time, but recently Khalifa Haftar's forces were able to seize a neighborhood of Tripoli, right?
Exactly. Well, the GNA is quite weak. It's a government with no military forces. There was some kind of agreement among some militias in the conference in Morocco a long time ago. But in terms of the military forces, it's still a precarious kind of government. The support of the
do you think it could collapse?
Turkish and the agreement that it has signed by with. Sorry?
Do you think this government could collapse? Is it that precarious?
I did not say, yeah. It's a kind of militarily is quite weak, and he needs the support. And he has requested the support at the military. And that signals somehow that that kind of government, this GNA, is a little bit thinking that it is at a precarious position in relation to and vis-a-vis the power of the Haftar that is gaining continuously. And that demonstrates why it requested the support from Turkey. And the disposition of the agreement are very, very important to be able to explain the future. And if Turkey will be intervening militarily in the country or not, the same way it did in Syria. The agreement is basically has several points, and in summary, it relates to the consultation, to trainings, to the supply of equipment, but it has one point of it that says that the GNA can request on-the-ground aid from Turkey, which it doesn't happen yet.
Okay.
I do not think, if we are thinking about whether it would be a military intervention from Turkey or not, I would not think that Turkey is thinking at this present moment of any airstrikes. There is a logistical kind of difficulty for Turkey to carry that because the air bases are quite not close enough to carry out airstrikes discreetly. And the second thing, the GNA did not request the on-the-ground presence
by
and
Turkish
intervention
forces
from Turkey.
yet, at least.
And
All right, let's bring in, if we could, Yusuf from Ankara. Basically, has Turkey signed up to be the guardian and saver of the Tripoli government? And can they prevent the Tripoli government from losing any more ground to Haftar?
Yeah, probably the Turkish support is in order to keep in power the government of national accord is very important from the perspective of the Turkish security interests. But let me also remind you that the UN-backed government inside the Tripoli also should be supported by the all countries, because that is the country, that is the government already UN-backed government officially inside Libya. For this reason, if the Turkey's efforts enough to keep it in the power, it is very important for the self-interest of the Turkey, but at the same time, it is to the interest of the Europe, because if the Tripoli government overthrown by the warlord Khalifa Haftar, probably a new internal clashes will increase, and that means a refugee crisis that Europe may increase also at the same time. The second issue is that the energy security will be in the danger if the Tripoli government is overthrown by the Khalifa Haftar. For this reason, I do believe that Turkey will try to keep in power the Tripoli government with the military and technical support, and it will be enough from my point of perspective. But if the Tripoli government is under the fire of the warlord Khalifa Haftar gets worsened, then the second phase may come to the stage.
All right. From perhaps the perspective of the GNA, let me ask, which is that I should point out the acronyms because they can get a little bit confusing in Libya. I'm talking about the internationally recognized UN-backed government. Now, Sami, from the perspective of that internationally recognized government, is the Turkish support about defeating Haftar or simply pushing the rebel forces back far enough that they have to come to the negotiating table?
Well, it's a good question, actually, but I think the dilemma here is whether the international community and any power or any country which want to support the Libyan have to be really on a moral also and legal ground. And we feel that the argument which just presented by your guest from Turkey, Mr. Yusuf, was very sound one, that it is a responsibility, first of all, for the international community really to support, the National Accord government. Not only that, but also to put an end to the military attempt and violation to the inspired and to the agreed state in Libya, which is civil and democratic state. So we are talking
But the
about,
reality is, Sami, of course, as you know, beyond lip service, most international powers are not really providing much other support to the Tripoli government, right?
Yes, that's how. Yes, I fully agree.
So
with you.
will the GNA
I think, yes, you are right.
Will the Tripoli government? Do you think it really believes now, with Turkish support, it's going to be able to defeat Haftar, or will the strategy be simply to inflict much of a loss to negotiate at the end of the day?
No, you cannot negotiate. There is no common ground really between the two camps. The camp of freedom and democracy and civil state cannot really find any ground with the military dictator who want to govern the Libyan country. It is uncompromisable area. It is
let me take this question back to Yusuf and say
what we are saying.
Let me, if I may.
You allow me just for a second, please.
Okay, go ahead very briefly.
Yes, I think it is black and white. The issue is very clear. We have already a international agreement signed, accepted also by the United Nations, which is the Khayrat Agreement, signed on 17/12/2015, sets the rules of what country should be and what's the mechanism for reforming this country and reaching the hope
Let me bring Yusuf
the nation.
Back into the discussion. Yusuf, countries don't usually intervene, obviously, in other parts of the world simply for altruistic reasons, right? They have some benefits or some interests in that region. What's at stake for Turkey? Is it really simply about saving the international legitimacy of this government, or also about saving some of Turkey's interests in the Eastern Mediterranean, especially when it comes to maritime issues and gas reserves?
For both, we can say for both, because all the shapes and all the borders of the Middle East is changing now, as you can see, inside Syria, inside Libya, inside the maritime borders. For this reason, I cannot say that the only concern that Turkey concerns about is not the Libyan national government of accord, but also at the same time, Turkey is pushing this issue because of its self-interest inside the Mediterranean, because there is a fait accompli inside the eastern part of the Mediterranean, in between the United Arab Emirates, Greece, Cypriots, and Egypt. And Turkey is being confined to a Sevilla plan, which constricts Turkey to a very limited part of the Mediterranean. But at the same time, Libya has...
Can that approach succeed, Yusuf? Can Turkey carve out a wider area for its own interests bilaterally between itself and Libya, against the wishes perhaps of Egypt, Israel, Greece, Cyprus, and so on?
Yeah, That is a diplomacy which will give Turkey a chance, because Turkey is already drilling in its economical exclusive zones, which at the same time Greece and the Cypriots at the same time declared that place as their economical zones. For this reason, Turkey has no problem with the Israel. Turkey has no problem with the Egypt in terms of economical exclusive zones. His problems is with the Greek side and with the Cypriot side. So what Turkey offers to the Egypt, what Turkey offers to the Israel is very important. If they sign a deal with Turkey, the area that the Egypt will gain is more than 30,000 square kilometers. For this reason, even the Sisi government will never accept this. The people of the streets on the Cairo should understand that the lands in the economical zones are being sold to the Greek side. For this reason, I believe that Turkey is pressing to the field with its military, with its drilling, with also the diplomacy that he signed an agreement with Libya. Let me remind that after Turkey signed the agreement, memorandum of understanding with the Libyan National Government of Accord, immediately Israel make a declaration that he is stopping all its facilities together with the Cypriots in the border of the economical exclusive zone, because the Cypriots has a maximalist policy toward the Israel's economical exclusive zones. Why Israel made a declaration like this? Because he understood also that Turkey is very dedicated to protect its rights, not on the ground, but also at the maritime areas. So I believe that the diplomacy will resolve the issue.
Let me bring Nofal in. What's happening to the US position? The US seems to be somewhere between withdrawal and confusion. Officially, the US is supposed to be supporting the internationally recognized government, but we saw the scenes of Haftar going and meeting with senior Trump administration officials and statements from the White House expressing support for Haftar.
Yes, I think the issue of Libya now at the US politics is not a priority, even though considering that Haftar has a dual citizenship, he's Libyan American, to my knowledge. The issue that I would like to bring in is that we keep talking about the component of this crisis, and there is one component of the crisis that we don't talk about, which is actually the Libyan people who are actually leaving the country to migrate elsewhere or grieving their stay in Libya. No matter how the diplomatic talks and relationships and the priorities and the dynamics at the regional level, the dynamics in North Africa, the dynamics in the Mediterranean region, we are still talking about the dynamic of crisis, and we are not considering the lives of those people who are leaving the country or staying in grief in the country. The diplomatics would probably address the symptoms of the crisis, but they are not going to resolve the deep-rooted causes of the conflicts. The deep-rooted causes of conflict in this country, and we have learned it from many, many, many other countries, that military interventions being agreed diplomatically or not are not going to resolve it. We have the examples of Syria, Iraq, and all other countries. It is only when people sit down and consider the past, talk about what has happened, how we can learn from the past and move on. A diplomatic solution can
moving on, we have about a minute left, and I want to give it, if I may, to Sami. Very briefly, Sami, at the end of the day, is Libya going to enter some kind of serious scenario with a lot of powers playing a role, but two powers influence ascending, Russia and Turkey? And will it ultimately come down to an understanding between those two powers?
Well, I think, there is no similarity at all between the Syrian crisis and the Libyan crisis. While the Syrian crisis, the starting point, they were really trying to make the revolution or their revolution successful, but they failed really to take off the regime currently in power. While in Libya, we have finished this since 2011, and we are trying really to face a new attempt from the military or the junta in Libya. So for a start, I mean, we are in completely different conversation here between the two situation. But however, and I think still the situation very clear, unless the international community really try really to put an end to this double standards and international political hypocrisy, we will lead nowhere but more obstacles in so-called Rabi' al-Arabi or the Arab Spring. United States, finally, I will just say, if you allow me, United States have really to stand.
We are running out of time, so we'll make it brief.
Yes, please. I think that United States have to play more positive role.
More of a role. All right, we'll see if time will bring that. For now, I'm afraid we are out of time. Let's thank our guests very much, Yusuf, Sami and Nawfal. And thank you too for watching. You can see the show again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, head over to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Sami Zeidan, and the whole team here. For now, it's goodbye.